Hello, everyone. My name is Jenelle Marie Pierce. I am the founder and executive director of the STD Project, and you are listening to the STD Podcast. We were previously Happy Hump Day podcasts. It's been a little while since we've done these, so now we are just the STD Podcast because we're not always going to publish on Hump Day, but the goal is to restart these podcasts again and to publish once a week. We'll see when that happens, whether it's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, maybe sometimes on a Monday, who knows. So before we get into our podcast, a little bit about me. This is my background. If you haven't already seen me in some realm on the internet somewhere, I launched the STD Project in 2012 alongside STD Awareness Month. Currently, I am the spokesperson for PositiveSingles.com, and I also sit on the board of the National Coalition. Nope, that's not right either. Goodness. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I am the tri-chair. This is more complicated than sitting on the board. Usually I just say sitting on the board because it makes more sense. But now that I have the stuff in front of me, I am the tri-chair of the Communications Action Group for the National Coalition for Sexual Health. I also sit as a member on the International Union Against Sexually Transmitted Diseases and Infections, the American Sexually Transmitted Diseases Association, the National Coalition of STD Directors, and the National Viral Hepatitis Roundtable. All of this stuff is supposed to be very impressive and is supposed to substantiate why my opinion matters, but I'll let you be the judge of that. You may have seen some of my work on the Washington Post. As a freelance writer there, I've done some work there on Planned Parenthood, Allure, Kinkley, oh my gosh, a number of others. Anyway, I've been doing this for a little while, and last couple of years I've been doing a lot of that kind of outreach, working on other websites and with other websites to try and get the word out, basically. Awareness, education, and acceptance is our pillars. So if you happen to be tuning in on YouTube, what you're seeing right now is the unedited version of our podcast. So all of what you just heard is the fancy come listen to us and come listen to me and see what we have to say. But we want to do a little bit of the fun side as well, of just like I'm a real person who's just trying to help other people and to make a job out of it, basically. I've been doing that since 2012. So for the last 6 years, it has been my job. But I do a lot of other things on the side too, like I was an adjunct professor at Grand Rapids Community College, and then I also am a certified group exercise instructor. So in theory, I'm supposed to be fit, but I don't know. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon and I'm having a beer, so cheers. Okay, I digress. So we are talking about a podcast today. And since we haven't done a podcast in a while, I want to answer one of the most commonly asked questions that we get. I hear it all the time from readers, people reaching out for direct consultations. We get comments on the website a lot, and I read about it on other sites, and other people are always talking about this. So I thought this was really relevant and pertinent, and let's address something a little bit dicey for our first podcast back from being out for such a long time. So welcome to the STD Projects podcast. Today we are talking about no condoms. So herpes and no condoms, or sex without condoms, and answering that question of, is this a thing? Is this a thing you should do? If you have an STD, like I do, I have genital herpes. I've had it since I was 16 years old. I don't know what year that was. Anyways, I'm 36 now, or I will be next month. My goodness, I'm already giving myself a little bit of extra age, whatever. So I'll be 36 in a month, and so it's been 20 years. Isn't that crazy? 20 years since I've had an STD. So my perspective is a whole lot different than it used to be. However, the thought process behind having herpes and not using condoms is really the same. That hasn't changed a whole lot. So the short answer to that question, if I have herpes, do I have to use condoms, is no. You don't have to do anything with your body and your partner's. And anybody else who tells you otherwise is either coming from a point of lacking empathy and understanding fully, or just kind of coming from a preachy clinical standpoint. A lot of sexual health educators or clinicians will say, absolutely, if you have an STD, you have to always use condoms from here on out. That's what you need to do to protect your partners. As if you also shouldn't be protecting yourself from potential risk with new partners or new partners. So I think it goes both ways. But let me break this down before I get all like the comments coming at me of how dare you as an educator and as a person who's a member of all of these boards and groups and societies and things. How could you say that no, you don't have to use a condom? And I guess there's a nuance here in the word choice that I'm using. So it's about have to. Whether someone has to do anything or not is up to them and their partners. And so the caveat behind that is that would require, that decision has to require some communication and a thorough understanding of risk and that person is potentially at risk of contracting an infection. So if you know that you have herpes, like I do, it is up to you ethically to disclose to your partners before putting them at risk. But then after that, it's up to you and your partners to decide what risks are pertinent, which ones you'd like to mitigate, and how you want to mitigate those risks. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to use a condom forever going forward for the rest of your lives. Full disclosure, I've actually had very few partners who wanted to continue using condoms after we've been in a long-term kind of monogamous or exclusive relationship. But you don't have to be monogamous for this to apply. It's really about communication and it's about consent. So as long as the other person is consenting and you're also consenting to the non-use, so just because you are positive for an infection doesn't mean that now somebody else or someone else gets to choose this for you. So if you 100% as a person with an STI, say for instance it's herpes, are like, yeah, I always want to use a condom because I'm really worried about transmitting it, and if I can reduce their risk as much as possible and not have to feel guilty if they do contract it, all of these things totally acceptable. Get it. Makes sense. More power to you. Go for it. All the yay, high five things I can possibly say, right? However, if you're kind of the mindset that which is just, this is just me speaking from my own personal mindset, is well, as long as the partner or partners are fully educated, they know that I have this infection, they know what their risks are, they know what the potential outcome could be of contracting the infection, like what it might be like, whether or not that's desirable or not, then it can be a choice between you and your partner or partners at that time. Like, okay, this is something that we don't want to have to deal with, or we don't want to use anymore for whatever reasons. And your reasons are varied, just like we are all varied and different. So you don't have to have a reason that makes educational sense, as long it does have to make educational sense. I mean, for you and your partners have to be okay with it, but you don't have to justify it to someone else externally, is what I'm trying to say. Thinking drink. Today I'm drinking a tropical IPA, Sierra Nevada, in case you're curious. I am not getting a sponsorship from Sierra Nevada. Maybe I'm supposed to cover that up. I don't know. Anyways, okay. So where were we? So we're talking about sex with no condom, herpes, no condoms. It's okay if you want to continue to use condoms. Condoms are great. Condoms are the only contraception and form of protection that protects you against unwanted pregnancy as well as STIs. So if you're a person who can get pregnant and you would like to avoid that, then that's also a great way in which to reduce that risk. But it's important to note that condoms aren't going to protect you from everything. You can have a condom on and still contract herpes. It's just going to greatly reduce your risk for infections, especially fluid-borne infections, right? Which are things like chlamydia and gonorrhea and HIV and syphilis and trich and stuff like that. So, but stuff like scabies or crabs, pubic lice, stuff like that is going to still be really easily transmitted because they oftentimes live and are in other areas that aren't protected by the condom itself. So there's still a kind of negotiation, a safer sex conversation that should take place, whether or not you choose to use condoms with your partner or partners anyways. And that's up to you. It's all about making sure that you and or the other person is fully consensual with whatever risks and risk ways to mitigate your risk you're going to utilize. And there's a whole host of those. We'll talk about that in another podcast. But I just wanted to make sure to put it out there that there is no rule that once you contract an STI, you are stuck now forever using condoms. And stuck is, I guess that's a subjective term too, because not everybody feels that way about condoms. Condoms are great. There's technically a condom for every person, every body part, every activity. You just have to find the ones that work well for you. But if you don't want to use them, as long as you and your partners are consenting, aware of your risk, and being fully responsible and educated about your sexual health, and that is your choice. I really just abhor the folks who are like, this is what you have to do. You're supposed to do this. You have to do this always. You should do this. The kind of like what's the word for those things? The always and the never. And it's not really relevant when you're talking human to human interaction in relationships. Like, there is no absolutes is what I was thinking. So there are no absolutes when it comes to relationships, and a lot of it is based on the communication you're having and the type of relationship you want to have, the kind of activities you're engaging in. But it is absolutely not my business nor anyone else's to tell you that you absolutely have to use something or do something with your body and with you and your partner's bodies at all times, at any time, at any place, anywhere. So I think that's the gist. I hope I didn't miss anything. The answer to that question is no, you don't have to always use a condom or always do anything with your body. You can choose to use a condom if you'd like to reduce risk that way, or you can choose to reduce risk in other ways, or you can just say that that's okay and I'm accepting the risk as long as it's consented and you and your partners are agreeing. And then that is up to you, and rock that out and enjoy your sex life with herpes or without, with an STI or without. Please contact us. I'm like, where am I going with this? How do I end this podcast? It's been a long time since I've done these, right? So if you'd like to listen to our podcast, it is on iTunes, Android, Google Play, Stitcher, Podchaser. It's all over the place. Any place that I could find to list it, it's up and loaded. And there are previous episodes. So if you're curious about what we did a couple of years back, you can listen to those. We'll have a new podcast every week. And if you'd like to listen to the unedited and watch the unedited version of this recording, go to YouTube, and then you can see a little bit longer version. If you have any questions or you'd like to be a part of the podcast, if you'd like to be interviewed, or if you'd like to just comment and tell us what you think, and if you have questions or ideas for a future episode, please come visit us on the stdproject.com. We're also on social media, Instagram, Twitter, all over the place. So please come look us up, find us, and review, subscribe, do all the things, and we will be back next week. Thanks so much for listening.